Oh. 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 Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam, Trilokyam Sacharacharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva, Tvameva Vedya Gunabhinam Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So what chapter are we in?
Chapter 11, on what number? On 39.
And what's the title of chapter 11?
I think the Bliss Yoga.
The Lamp of Bliss, is that right?
The Bliss of Yoga.
The Bliss of Yoga. I knew something about that. Okay. Will you help us out, please?
Was it 39, Mark?
Yes,
Okay. Mahattara prayasena Sri Dushyaya disadhanam Kuta sampadhyate suktao Sukham chetatra no bhavet. If sleep does not produce an experience of bliss, why do people make so much efforts to procure soft beds, etc.?
So again, the idea is sleep, which is the absence of the projecting mind, is the state blissful. And what Vidyaraj is saying here, if it were not blissful, why do we spend so much time procuring comfortable beds, etc.? And now in our day and age, we have a whole population that's sleep deprived, and we have sleeping pills, and we have CPAP machines, and all sorts of things to do, white noise to play to help people sleep. When we can't sleep, it's terrible. We all love the rest, the peace of a good sleep. And again, this is called the Anandamaya Kosha. This is not the highest state. It is the state where the mind is in its seed form. It's only conditioned by one vritti, and that's ignorance. The point is, the projecting power, the rajas, is gone. And the tripoti, we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. The distinction of knower, knowing, and known is gone. And that state is very blissful. Going on.
दुःखनाशार्थमेवैतत् इति चेद्रोगिणस्तथा भवद्वरोगिणस्तत्त्वे सुखायैवेति निश्चुनि. Objection. It is only to remove pain. Reply. That is true for the sick alone, but since healthy people do so too, it must be to obtain happiness.
Yes. It's only to remove sin, he said?
No, he says it is only to remove pain and
To remove pain. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. And that's only for sick people, but healthy people love sleep too. So we can say, oh, I love deep sleep only when I'm in a terrible state. Well, no. People who have a good life, exercise regularly, they still love sleep. Everybody loves sleep. Going on.
तर्हि साधनजन्यत्वात् सुखं वैषयिकं भवेत् भवद्वेवात्र निद्राया पूर्वं शयासनादिजम्. Objection. Then the happiness in sleep is born of objects due to the bed, etc. Reply. It is true that the happiness before going to sleep is due to these accessories.
So the idea here is there's a difference between becoming sleepy and the state of sleeping. So we must be successful at becoming sleepy. So if you have a lumpy bed and it makes your back hurt, you have a difficult time becoming sleepy. Sleep eludes us. So yes, the comfortable bed, etc., helps us to become sleepy. But if we're successful at it, then you may want to drink some warm milk, you may want to take a hot bath, all sorts of ways, meditate a bit before bed, or maybe do some journaling or do some prayer work. That helps you become sleepy. And the mind drifts into sleeping. Now, there's an implication here. The truth is, we cannot practice nirvikalpa samadhi. We can only practice savikalpa samadhi. It's deep introversion of the mind, tuning up the mind, doing our best to drown the mind in the self. This is like becoming sleepy. And just like when you're becoming sleepy, you want to remove the impediments. If you've got a lumpy bed, get a better mattress. If there's light coming in that's disturbing you, close the drapes. If there's noise that's disturbing you, maybe earplugs will help. What does the yogi do? Intense vairagya. What holds the personal sense of self in place? That's why we go back to one of my favorite verses in Vivekachudamani, good old 267. Even after realization of the truth, there exists a strong impression that one is the doer and the enjoyer, which is the cause for rebirth. Here, that means identification. I still feel like a person. It says this has to be conscientiously rooted out. How? Through steady and continuous identification with the self. And he says it is the annihilation of the vasanas here and now that's considered liberation. We don't know what's our last attachment. Any one attachment has the power to hold that ahankriti in place, that jiva bhavana in place. Last attachment is let go. Oh. Personal sense of self is gone. And the mind goes from savikalpa samadhi into nirvikalpa samadhi, which, like sleep, is timeless. If I awake in the middle of the night because I have to pee, I have no idea what time it is. How long have I been asleep? I have to hit my talking alarm clock. The time is 4:35 a.m. Oh, okay. Same with samadhi. When it happens, it is a timeless state. It's when the mind returns and begin to acknowledge, oh, this is what has happened. Unlike deep sleep, you are fully conscious through it all. Next verse.
Nidrayam tu sukham yatyaj yante kena hetuna sukha bimukhadhiradau panchamajjet pare sukhe. But the happiness experienced in deep sleep is not obtained from any object. A man may go to sleep expecting to be happy, but before long he experiences a happiness of a higher order.
Yes. Oh, I'm going to go to sleep, and I hope I'm going to dream that I'm like getting millions of dollars. That I'm in Las Vegas at the casino and I'm winning at the poker table. That's a limited condition kind of happiness, even if done in deep sleep in the dream state. But the bliss of the Anandamaya Gosha, deep sleep, is full. Next one.
Jagrat vayavrittibhi shranto vishramatha virodhini apanite swasthachitto nubhave dvishaye sukham. A man fatigued in the pursuit of worldly affairs lies down and removes the obstacles to happiness. His mind being calm, he enjoys the pleasure of resting in bed.
Yes. So you worked very hard, you've got lots of things going wrong, some going right. Whatever it is, you lie down in bed and they all come into the bliss of deep sleep. Next verse.
Atma bhi sukhadhivrittau swananda pratibimbati anubhuyaina matrapi triputya shranti matpuyat. Directing his thoughts towards the self, he experiences the bliss of the self reflected in the intellect. But experiencing this, even here, he becomes tired of the pleasures derived of the triad of experiencer, experience, and experienced.
So when the yogi turns his mind inward to revel in the self, long as there's some egoism there, I am feeling blissful. Ooh, he even becomes tired of that. We want to come to the state where all our striving cease. Next one.
Tachram syapanu yatha jivo dhavet paratmani tenaikyam prapya tatrityo brahmananda swayam bhavet. To remove that weariness, the jiva rushes towards his real self and becoming united with it experiences the bliss of Brahman in sleep.
So, when you get tired of that triple D, you let go. Everything ceases. Perfect resting in the sound. And again, this is the value of having the great punya of being able to hang with a man or woman of God. Because we would just tune up to Swamiji. And he was so empty. Indescribable. Next verse.
Drishtanta Shakuni Shrena Kumarascha Mahanripaha Mahabrahmana Ityete Suptyanande Shrutiritaha. The scriptures give the following example to illustrate the bliss enjoyed in sleep. The falcon, the eagle, the infant, the great king, and the knower of Brahman.
I have no idea what he means by that. What I think it is when any being goes to sleep, their experience is the same, no matter what their status is in the world. Going on.
Shakuni Sutra Baddha Shakuni Sutra Baddha Sat Dikshu Vyapritya Vishramam Alam Dva Bandhanasthanam Hastastambhadhyupashrayet. Tied to a string, the falcon, flying hither and thither, but failing to find a resting place, returns to rest on the wrist of its master or on the post to which it is tied.
Okay, so now he's talking about a falconer. Let's see how he carries on the metaphor going on.
Jivopadhi manastadvat dharma dharma phalapate swapne jagrati cha bhrantva shine karmani liyate. Similarly, the mind, which is the instrument of the jiva, moves on in the dreaming and waking states in order to obtain the fruits of righteous and unrighteous deeds. When the experiencing of these fruits ceases, the mind is absorbed in its cause and undifferentiated ignorance.
Yes. So whether you're a good person in the world or a bad person in the world, whether you're a noble person in the world or a humble person in the world, we all experience deep sleep. All of it goes away. Next one.
Sheno vegena nidaikal Ampashayitum vajritaye jiva suptyai tatha dhave brahmanandai kadampataha. The eagle rushes only to its nest, hoping to find rest there. Similarly, the jiva, eager only to experience the bliss of Brahman, rushes to sleep.
Yes. So everybody, without exception, enjoys deep sleep. Going on.
Atibala stananam pitva mritishya yagato hasan ragadveshadhyanupatte anandaikasva bhavabhak. A tiny tot, having fed at the breast of its mother, lies smiling in a soft bed. Free from desire and aversion, it enjoys the bliss of its nature.
So even an infant having nursed, having postprandial sleepiness, falls to sleep in this bliss. Don't have to be a PhD or a mogul. Everybody, puppies, enjoy deep sleep. Now, we have to be very careful because he keeps going on and on about this. Is he saying that deep sleep is the highest state? If that be so, let's all become heroin addicts. I don't think that's what is driving it. Going on.
Maharaja Sarvabhauma Santripta Sarvabhogatah Manushananda Simanam Prapyanandaika Murti Bhak. A mighty king, sovereign of the world, having obtained all the enjoyments which mark the limits of human happiness to his full contentment, becomes the very personification of bliss.
Yes, so the mighty king, having all the cash and prizes, it's everything the world has to offer. I mean, let's simplify it. I think Vidyaranya has made the whole thing much more complicated than it need to be. I like the way Shankara articulates it. In his discussion of the Anandamaya Kosha, this is the bliss sheath. And it's important to understand it. We experience the bliss sheath in two ways. When we satisfy a desire, there is the low grade discontent that most of us run around with all the time. I want this, and after I get that, I want that, and then I want something else. Desire, not desire become one. Kriya, it's dear to me. Moda, I get proximate to it. Pramoda, the point of pleasure. I get a momentary hit of my own self-nature. The Anandamaya Kosha is experienced fully in deep sleep. But the point is, good food, good music, good love making, good art, satisfying project at work, getting money, buying a house, they all do the same thing to my mind. It varies in intensity and duration, depending on how badly I wanted the object and how completely it satisfied me. It's always temporary. That expression of the Anandamaya Kosha. But what it does to my mind is the same. And we get deluded by the diversity of sensory experience. So the meditation that's implied here is own your ananda, watch your mind, own your dukkha. When you see yourself wanting, oh, it's so boring. It's stupid. Finally get what you want, and it's gone in a moment. And it's never in the object. We just use the object to remove momentarily the shape of Shakti, the projecting power. Deep sleep, it's gone altogether. The import of this whole chapter, once again, the world isn't bad. The body's not disgusting. Gambling isn't evil. No. The world is shunyata, empty, void, neutral. But based on my past proclivities, I imbue certain situations with joy-giving and misery-producing qualities. It's all that happens. It's all that happens. It's probably the most important insight we can get. And the Buddha was taught the same thing. The first turning of the wheel of Dharma was the Four Noble Truths, which clearly articulate this whole process. Life, the way most of us live it, is dukkha. The cause of the suffering is craving, attachment, aversion. Freedom from the craving, the attachment, the aversion is freedom from suffering. When I get what I want, when I go to sleep. Can a person be permanently free from suffering? Yes. How? Marga Satya, the truth of the path. Sadhana. Even though the Buddha said it, it is the purest Vedanta. All right, next verse.
Mahavipro Brahmavedi Kritakrityatva Vidyanandasya Paramamam Kashtham Prapyavati Shrathe. A great Brahmana, a knower of Brahman, has extended the bliss of knowledge to its extreme limit. He has achieved all that was to be achieved and sits established in that state.
Yes. So, a knower of Brahman is not somebody who sleeps all day. What the knower of Brahman has done is he's convinced that his self is the fountainhead, the source of all happiness. So, I like to make the distinction between the bhogi and the yogi. Both want to be happy. The bhogi practices bhoga, enjoyment, meaning they approach life from the paradigm. Satisfying all my desires is what's going to make me happy. Not understanding that the end result, there may be momentary satisfaction, but the end result is more desire. The yogi also wants happiness, but they engage in a way of life with the intent to reduce the number of desires entertained. How? Deep inside. When I see that my compulsion to try to control other people makes me miserable, makes other people miserable, now have the incentive to let it go. When I see I get into the future and I start wringing my hands, gloom and doom, gloom and doom, I start to let it go. It's all going to be okay. When I'm plagued by comparison and envy, oh, my friends, they've got stuff that I don't have, I start to let it go. The yogi, when a desire arises, notice I didn't say if, when, is going to do it. Understands what it is. It's a hangover. It's the result of yesterday's unconscious interaction with the objects of the senses. Left of asana compels me to want to do this, that, and the other. And no delusions about what's causing is suffering or where is happy. What do we do? So in Bhagavad Gita, we're just starting second chapter. At the very end is this Sthita Prajna Purusha section. Verse 54, Arjuna says, how does the Sthita Prajna Purusha, the person of steady wisdom, how does he walk? How does he talk? How does he sit? How does he act in the world? And the next verse, verse 55, so simple, but it is the summum bonum of yoga. When a person casts off all the desires of the mind and is satisfied in the self, by the self, then he's said to be a man of steady wisdom. This is just what Vidyaranya has said. Vyasa Vairagyacha. Practice turning the mind into the self from the understanding of deep insight. The world isn't bad. There just is nothing there. Trinkets and baubles. That's all. No precious gems. Go, go, go. Next verse.
मुग्ध बुद्धाति बुद्धानां लोके सिद्धा सुखात्मना उदाहृतानां मन्येतु दुःखिनो न sukhatmakaha. These examples of the ignorant infant, the discriminative king, and the wise brahmana are of people considered to be happy. Others are subject to misery and are not very happy.
So there's people who never get what they want. But these people that he's been talking about, the prior ones, their happiness is temporary. But the good news for the knower of Brahman is it's always available. It's unconditional. Doesn't cost anything. You don't have to be a particular station or live in a particular place. We need nothing. This is why in other places Vidyaranya has thunder. Absolute necessity of sannyas. Taking up the orange cloth. Let go of the world. Next verse.
कुमारादिव देवायं ब्रह्मानन्दैकतत्परः स्त्रीपरिष्वक्त वेदे वेद न ब्रह्मा नापि चान्तरम्. Like the infant and the other two, man passes into deep sleep and enjoys only the bliss of Brahman. In that state, like the man embraced by his loving wife, is not conscious of anything either internal or external.
So in deep sleep, we're not conscious of anything, folded up in ignorance, unlike the person who's enjoying in the world. And frequently, for example, when a person is making love, we do lose ourselves in that. Frequently, it comes very close to an egoless state. It's so ecstatic. Next one.
बाह्यं प्रध्यादिकवृत्त गृहकृत्यं यथात्तरं तथा जागरणं भ्राम्यं नाडीस्थ स्वप्न आन्तरः. Just as what happens outside in the street may be called external, and what is done inside the house internal, so the experiences of the waking state may be called external, and the dreams produced inside the mind and the nervous system may be called internal.
Yes, very good description of it. So we have the gross experiences in the waking state through the stula sharira, the gross body, and we have the subtle experiences in the dream state, the sukshma sharira. But both disappear in deep sleep. Next one.
पितापि सुप्तावपित्येतौ जीववद्भावराणनात् सुप्तौ ब्रह्मैव नो जीव संसारित्वा सम्मीक्षणात्. The Shruti says, in sleep even a father is no father. End quote. In the absence of all worldly ideas, the jivahood is lost and a state of pure consciousness prevails.
Yes. So in deep sleep, all our relationships, all the things we think make us happy. Oh, my son, he is so smart. He works for Google, brings home lots of money. All that's gone in deep sleep. And the opposite too. Oh, my poor son, he was born with a birth defect. He's going to be disabled his whole life. Ah, gone in deep sleep. All of it. Next one.
पितृत्वाद्यभिभान्मानो य सुखदुःखकारस हि तस्मिन्न भगते तीर्ण सर्वाच्छ सर्वाञ्छोकान् भवत्ययम्. One having such notions as I am a father experiences joy and grief. When such attachment perishes, he rises beyond all sorrows.
Yes. So, one way to get rid of the joys and sorrows of fatherhood, go to sleep. But the other way is through renouncing my attachment to those relationships. I was working with a young man this past week, and he's a gay man, and he and his husband are currently separated. They're both young, they're both very young, and they're having a hard time. And all he was able to say, well, he does this and he does that, and then I try to get flowers for him, and then he does this, and then he does that, and then he does this, and I try to make him feel this. Da, 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 da. And after a while, I just point out, all you've been talking about is he. You've given this person all this power. Nobody has the power to make us feel anything. It's only because of attachment and identification. We don't have to run away. We don't have to get a divorce. All we have to do is let go of attachment and identification. Doesn't mean we're mean. Let the world be. The conditions of the world do not need to have anything to do with your peace of mind and happiness. Yet we yogis, such is the power of Maya. It's so clear in satsang. Get me at home. You, what you've done to me. Minus and minus. So hard. Let it. Well, then he's going to be all upset if I don't react. He'll think I don't care. Uh-huh. Let it. Be present. Be kind. non-attached. This is the work. How do I know what my attachments are? Look to where you get disturbed. There it is. And don't worry. If you miss an experience in life where you're attached or identified, you don't consciously see what's there and work on letting it go, the Lord will bring it around again. He's so compassionate. Oops, Jim, you missed it this time. Let me give you another opportunity. And the Lord has all eternity. It will keep happening until we let go. I like to say you could run, but you cannot hide. So you might as well lean into it. Work. Next verse.
सुषुप्ति काले सकले विलाने तमसावृतः सुखरूपं कुप्पयतीति ब्रूते ह्यर्थर्वणि श्रुतिः. A text of the Atharva Veda says, in the state of deep sleep, when all the objects of experiences have been absorbed and only darkness, tamas, prevails, the jiva enjoys bliss.
Yes, so here he footnotes his entire discussion on deep sleep, the Anandamaya Kosha, by quoting the Atharva Veda. Footnote, going on.
Sukham swapyas samatraham na vaikinchidvedisham iti sukte sukhajnane paramrishyati chathitah. A man from deep sleep remembers his happiness and ignorance and says, I was sleeping happily, I knew nothing then.
We've done that. Same idea. We recognize the bliss of deep sleep only after the fact through memory. And what he's may be implying, I'm not clear on where he's going with this, is the law of memory. The law of memory is you cannot remember something you haven't directly experienced. This is to deal with the doubt. Well, I'm not there in deep sleep. I disappear. And Vedanta says, okay, Puneet, did you sleep well last night?
I did.
Did I sleep well last night?
I don't know.
Why don't you know?
Wasn't there.
You were not there. The fact that you can say with conviction, I must have slept soundly. I woke up very rested. Didn't wake up all night long. Means you were there to experience it. Here's awareness, always there. Here is the mind, waking state, dream state, folded up in deep sleep. Watch carefully. Samadhi. Mind comes back and says, oh my gosh, there's nobody there. Self simply is and knows. Next verse.
Paramarshō nubhutesti tyasida nubhavatstada chidatma tvatvasat chidatmatvat swato bhati sukham jnana dhisatatah. Recollection presupposes experience. So in sleep there was experience. The bliss experienced in dreamless sleep is revealed by consciousness itself, which also reveals the undifferentiated ignorance, ajnana covering bliss in that state.
Yes, so that's he, in fancy words, he said exactly what I just said. You can't remember something, you can't recollect something you haven't experienced. Next one. He's smart, he agrees with me.
Brahma vijnanamanandam iti vajasayinah patantyatah swaprakasham sukham brahmaiva netarat. The Vajasanayans say Brahman is of the nature of consciousness and bliss. Therefore, the self-luminous bliss is Brahman itself and nothing else.
Who says that?
Vajasanayans.
I have no idea who they are. Let's go on and see what he says about them.
It says, there's a footnote which says, Brihattaranakya Upanishad. It forms part of the Vajanayi branch of the Yajurveda.
Oh, okay. So he's quoting the Vedas again. It talks about what is Brahman. Brahman is Ananda. And again, Brahman itself is not a feeling. I struggled with this a lot in the beginning. Because if the self is Satchidananda and the self is changeless, well, I don't feel very good. How come whatever Ananda is, it can't be a feeling because it comes and goes. So the way I start with it, we define Ananda as no sorrow reaches there. Physical pain gets to my body, suffering gets to my mind, doubt gets to my intellect, but nothing gets to the self. Then why don't we call it Satchit Shunya? Why do we call it Satchit Ananda? Because when the mind ceases being that extroverted mind, first in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the Tripati is gone. Only the self remains. Mind ceases to be mind. It's so blissful. But when the mind returns and the individual, the goal, and the struggle, they're all gone. Then even when the waking state mind is functioning, mind is no longer a mind the way it was a mind. To go there, words fall. Next verse.
Yajnanam tatra la nautao vijnanam no vijnanam manomayao taryo hi vilayavastha nidrajnanam cha saivahi. The mind and the intellect sheets are latent in the state called ignorance. Deep sleep is the condition in which these sheets are latent, and it is therefore a state of ignorance.
Yes, so they are latent, they are unmanifest, they are in a seed form. And that's why we call the Anandamaya Kosha the state of pure ignorance. No suffering there, but the seeds of the waking state in the dream state are there. Going on.
Vilina Dritavat Paschat Syadvijnanam Mayodhanaha Vili Navastha Anandam Yashabdena Kathatyate. Just as melted butter again becomes solid, the two sheets in the states following deep sleep again become manifest. The state in which the mind and intellect are latent is called the bliss sheet.
So he's kind of summing it all up. He calls it the Anandamaya Kosha. This is all laid out in the Taittiriya Upanishad. It's laid out in Viveka Chudana. The idea here is mind and intellect are absorbed into a seed-like form. So we have 2 or 3 people sound asleep on the floor. One's a baker, one's a computer programmer, one's a doctor. You can't tell which is which. They're all, but the baker doesn't wake up as a computer programmer, and the computer programmer doesn't wake up as a doctor. They wake up with the continuation of the story that's laid down by the Vatsanas. Mind is not gone. It's only in its seed form. Next verse.
Sukti Purvakshane Buddhi Vrittirya Sukha Bimbata Saiva Tadbimba Sahita Linananda Mayastataha. The modification vritti of the intellect in which just before sleep bliss is reflected becomes latent in the state of deep sleep along with the reflected bliss and is known as the bliss sheath.
Yes. So did he read the Sanskrit for me again?
Sukti Purva Kshane Buddhi Vrittirya Sukha Bimbita Saiva Tadbimba Sahita Linananda Mayastataha.
No, he doesn't call it Vasanananda.
No.
But it's the same idea. The same idea that there's a latency, it just kind of merges in. So as I'm getting sleepy, that too is pleasurable. And at the other end of deep sleep in the morning, that's pleasurable too. Just a little bit of mind emerging, but not yet the tyranny of the Vicheda Shakti. Going on.
Antarmukho ya anandam Mayo Brahma Sukham Tada Bhakte Chidbimba Yuktabhi Jnanotpanna Vrittibhi. This vritti thus turned within, which is termed the bliss sheath, enjoys the bliss reflected on it in association with the modifications of ignorance, catching the reflection of consciousness.
Yes. So the mind is blissful in deep sleep. It's not the self that is blissful. It is the mind that is blissful. And again, it is the mind that is blissful at the satisfaction of a desire. The 2 places where we experience the Anandamaya Kosha. Going on.
Ajnana vrittaya sukshma Vispashta buddhi vrittaya iti vedanta siddhanta paraga pravadantihi. The adepts in Vedanta say that the modifications of ignorance are subtle, whereas those of the intellect are gross.
The modification of what is subtle?
Of ignorance are subtle, whereas those of the intellect are gross.
Okay, so the modification of ignorance, meaning what happens in deep sleep, is very subtle. It is subtler than the Vikshepa Shakti of the dream and the waking state. So, going back to the second chapter of the Mandukya Karika, where Gaudapada basically says, well, I know we talked about three mind states, waking, dream, and deep sleep. We actually only have two. We have deep sleep, the causal state, that's subtle vritti, and we have dream. You've got daytime dream, you've got nighttime dream. A little bit of difference, but they're basically both dreams. Projection of the mind into the triple-D. All the misery that goes along with it, with only respites of happiness. When satisfying a desire, I give up struggle. Next verse.
Mandukya Tapaniyadi Shrutishvedat Tisputam Anandamaya Bhokritva Brahmananda Cha Bhogyata. This is fully explained in the Mandukya and Tapaniya Upanishads. It is the sheath of bliss which is the enjoyer, and it is the bliss of Brahman which is enjoyed.
Yes. So there is no cause for the bliss of deep sleep. It's not my pillow. It's not my Tempur-Pedic. It is myself. Going on.
एकीभूत सुषुप्तस्थ प्रज्ञान घनतां गतः आनन्दमय आनन्दं भुक्ता चेतोमय वृत्तिभिः. This profusion of bliss, Anandamaya, having become concentrated into one mass of consciousness in the deep sleep, enjoys the reflected bliss of Brahman with the help of modifications, vrittis, reflecting a superabundance of consciousness.
So this is what happens. This subtle form of the mind, conditioned only by ignorance, enjoys deep sleep. That's all that it is. And the point of this exhaustive treatment of the deep sleep state, first of all, nobody ever gets realized in deep sleep. But what Vidyaranya is trying to prove to us is bliss is my swabhav, it's my self-nature. It's not in the objects. Even before moksha dawns on the mind, I have the proof. My self-nature is bliss every night. Deep sleep. Going on.
Vijnana maya mukhyayo rupair-yukta puraduna salaye naikatam prapto bahutandula pishtavat. The self Chidabhasha in the waking and dream states is connected or associated with various sheaths such as Vijnanamaya and appears as many, that is, plays various roles. In the deep sleep state, however, they get merged and become latent like a dough of many powdered wheat grains.
Yes. So the idea is this Chidabhasa, which literally means the reflection of consciousness in the Vijnanamaya kosha, in the subtle intellect, experiences its various joys and sorrows as the agent in the waking state and in the dream state. and then it is all covered up. The image I like to use, you have the mirror, and it can reflect a handsome person, a beautiful woman, or an ugly person. But if I drape the mirror with black cloth, is the mirror still having the capacity to reflect? Yes. What's in the mirror? Blackness. Mirror has not lost its capacity to reflect. Every image is now obscured by the black. Likewise, Chidavasa has the capacity to know the world of name and form in the waking and dream states. But in deep sleep, it's like a piece of black cloth. Or the other great simple metaphor. With your eyes wide open, look around the room and you see all the name and form. Now close your eyes. You are not blind. You are seeing the back of your eyelids. That's all deep sleep is. Next verse. One more, then we'll quit.
प्रज्ञानानि पुरा बुद्धि वृत्तयोऽथ घनो भवत् घनत्वं हिमबिन्दूनाम् उद्गदेशे यथा तथा. The modifications of the intellect, which are instruments of cognition, unite and become one in the state of sleep, just as drops of cold water in the Himalayan region solidify into a mass of ice.
And this prajnana ghanam is the term basically he's used, isn't it?
Prajnan Anipura.
Then he says ghanam, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. The idea here is, what is deep sleep? A homogeneous mass of undifferentiated mind stuff. The chitta is in that undifferentiated, it's avyakta, it's unmanifest. Okay, it's 9. We'll have to quit here. What verse are we on for next week?
71.
71. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.